Hello everyone, welcome back to Behind the Eye of Odin. I figured since we're starting a new rack of mead, a new batch of mead, I'd let you guys actually watch the majority of the process of how we do that. So I'll go through the steps as we get there. Right now we're doing our sanitizing. Ashton's getting the carboy done. We've already done the spoon and the stopper and the airlock and the tube for the hydrometer and the hydrometer itself. That way we can, you know, actually get everything not killing the yeast. So the first thing I've already got is I've got the pot on the stove. It doesn't have anything in it yet. We've put the honey into a warm sink of water so that it'll be easier to pour and get out. Once we get started with that, we'll let you watch. But as for right now, we're just going to go ahead and finish up our sanitizing and sterilization stuff. And when we're ready to, we'll come back and you can actually watch us do all of the pouring and everything. So the first thing we're going to have to do is put the honey into the pot. And that's why we have it over here in the hot water in the sink. As you can see, this is not purified honey. This has not been processed. This is just, I went out and got local honey. It actually still has bee parts in it. That'll come out pretty much during the first racking, which is not an issue. But first things first, honey goes in the pot. So because it's raw honey, it doesn't pour as evenly or as quickly as the purified processed honey, but it should have a more natural flavor. This one is just a wild honey. It's mostly clover and random people's backyard gardens. So I cannot attest for the flavor of this. You can buy specialty honey. Like there's a couple of places in town that are far more expensive that you can get like raspberry honey from Washington or other forms of, oh that's so good looking. You can get other forms of honey from places outside of your state over the internet. But I would suggest sticking to local if that's an option for you. So as soon as I've got this honey in here, which, you know, as soon as it's in, I'm done with this part. And I can just seal these back up and try and get them to drain into something else. Save some of the honey maybe for home use. But once the honey's in the pot, we have to add at least a gallon or two of I use distilled water because I don't know what the flavor of spring water or drinking water is going to do. Not to mention the fact that distilled water is more or less contaminant free comparatively. Okay, so we wound up scraping the honey out because, well, it's kind of a giant pain in the butt. But it's all in here now. We got about 15 pounds of honey in there, and we did taste it. It's really good. So now that I put my fingers in my mouth and putting it back in the sterilizer, just in case I wind up touching any of the ingredients. So the honey is in. Now we're going to take our distilled water and stick it in there. So we got these for really, really cheap at our grocery store, local grocery store. But you need to add at least a gallon of water. At least 1 gallon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gauge about how much water I want in here so that I can reach my candy thermometer. Okay. Got about a gallon of water in there. And then all I did to hang my candy thermometer is I took a regular wire hanger, bent the side so that it fits just like that over the top of my pot. Now I'm just going to take the candy thermometer and make sure that I can see the numbers. Because I always work in Fahrenheit because I live in the US, I'm going to go off the red numbers. If I were working off Celsius, or if my recipe called for Celsius, I'd use the black numbers. That's just this specific candy thermometer. So I'm going to see if this fits in right And if it does, awesome. And if it doesn't, I'm going to have to fill a little bit more. And that seems to be okay, but I want more water. I want it to be a little bit closer to the top. The reason I'm hanging it over the top as opposed to down the side like the thermometer could do is because I don't want to measure the temperature of the pot. I want to measure the temperature of the liquid. Alright, that's actually really good looking. Looks really good. I got at least a gallon in here. I'll be able to see when the temperature comes up to the right temperature. So now that all of my liquid is in the pot, I'm going to go ahead and start stirring it up, and now I'm going to turn the heat on. You don't want to turn the heat on before this because if it's just honey in here, you're likely to wind up burning it. What I'm going to go ahead and do next is bring the temperature of this mixture up to about 174 degrees Fahrenheit. You can check my other video where I just give you the text information to find out what that is in Celsius. But I'm going to bring this up to about 174 degrees Fahrenheit and then do my very best to keep it at 174 for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. So once we have that going and it's making the noise, because it does make a noise in a steel pot, which is why I use the steel. But once it's making that noise, I will come back and let you see what it kind of looks like over the top. And then when we're ready to do the next step, we'll come back again after that. So we've got it up to 170 degrees at the moment, which is almost where we want it to be. However, if you come and listen really close right here at the base of the pot, you can hear how it sounds like it's boiling almost. What that is the pot whining because of the heat. So it's not actually boiling underneath, but it's hot enough that it's this close to a boil. That's exactly where you want to be. So you want to bring it up to 175 degrees and then try and hold the temperature there. I turned it up because I got impatient because I've got somewhere to be in a couple of hours. So I turned it up too fast. I almost burned it. I was so close to burning it that I could smell it starting to oxidize, and that is something you definitely do not want. So now that we have it at the temperature we want to make sure and level it off so it doesn't go too hot, it doesn't actually boil. What we are doing is we are pasteurizing the honey, which makes it so that any of the bacteria or anything that does happen to survive in the honey, which honey is antibacterial, but any of the bacteria that did survive, we're currently killing it. You want to hold at this temperature, as I said before, 15 to 20 minutes. When we're ready to pour and pull it off the stove, that's when we'll come back and we'll just watch. You guys can watch us pour it in and see kind of how we do it. We got it up to 174. It went a little bit over. I'm okay with that. It didn't burn. It didn't oxidize. It didn't smell like it was burning. So now we've removed it from heat. We're going to let it sit for another 5 minutes or so, just because we only let it go for 15 minutes. So I'm going to let it cool down for another 5 minutes naturally. And then I'm actually going to add more cold water that I put in the fridge so that I can cool it down enough to put it in my glass carboy and not worry that it's going to shatter the glass going from cold to hot. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll show you what I've found is an effective way to get it into the carboy and aerated at the same time. Like I said, I did get this a little hotter than I wanted it to be, so there's a bit of foam on the top that's a little more solid than I'm happy with. So I'm just grabbing a strainer and getting the majority of it out. I'll rinse that in a minute. But we've added cold water to this so that I can touch it. As long as you can touch it, you can pour it into the glass. But we're going to get the funnel and pour this on top of a little bit of cold water that we already have in there. The reason we're going to do it this way is so that, one, we're making less mess with the funnel, And 2, we pull it up just a hair, so yeah. 2, we know that it's not going to be too hot to go in. Doing it this way, from way up above, we're almost 100% certain that it's getting lots of air into it as we pour. The more air you have in it, the more oxygen your yeast is going to have to produce the alcohol that you're after. Makes it so your yeast will actually, activate a little bit faster and a little bit better. Another thing you can do, which we're going to do when we add the yeast, is add the juice of maybe 1 or 2 oranges. We have oranges, and we'll show you that process when we get to it. But because the yeast has to set up for about 3 hours prior, we're actually just going to add some water to this. So hold on to that. We're going to add the rest of our water. And then, once the rest of our water is in, this one's one of the heavy ones. But once our water is in, whoops, just spill it all over the damn floor. Once our water is in, we'll be ready to let this sit and assume room temperature. So as we've now made a huge mess of water all over my floor, we've got this filled. It's got about 5 1/4 gallons of liquid in it. We're going to be setting that into a different container when we do our first racking, because we're actually going to do flavored meads this time, and we want to try several different types. But right now, this is way too hot to pitch mead, or to pitch our yeast into, so we're going to leave this for several hours. We're actually going to be a little bit late to everything that we've got going on today, but in another 3 hours, after we're done with some of the other stuff we got to get done today, we will come back and show you how to aerate this a little bit. Basically, you're just going to shake it up. It's going to take 2 of us. Then after that, we'll be pitching the yeast in. The last part that we have to do is aerate the must. That was really loud, sorry. But we have to aerate the must, which is just adding oxygen to it. Shake it. Okay, so this almost seems carbonated as is. So I'm going to get this into the must. And this is the other type. This one will actually take a couple more hours on top of this. But I'm doing an experiment because I left this one out for too long before I was ready to use it. I can feel the little package inside. I just broke open the inside package of this one. I'm going to let this sit for an hour or 2. If it puffs up, I'm going to pour this in there also. But if it doesn't, then I'm going to expect that this one is dead. And 5 to 15 hours, this one should start to ferment. And at that point, we will know that once the airlock starts bubbling, we will know that it is actually brewing. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in, nice and tight, stick my finger over the hole, and shake it up one more time so that the yeast gets all the way in. It's all mixed up nice and happy. Because as you might be able to see, I don't know if you can tell, but a lot of the yeast is just sitting right here on the side. I don't want it to stay there. I want it down inside the must. So, and more oxygen at this point is a good thing. Oh yeah. That's got more in there. Now that it's in there, and it definitely smells like yeast and honey, putting that in. And I'm going to leave this somewhere where it will stay nice and warm for the next couple of days so that we can get the fermentation process started nice and strong. Anyway, that is starting your mead. When we come back in six or so weeks, we're going to come back and start pulling this out into 1 gallon carboys to flavor. We'll let you watch that when that happens, but this is it for today, other than cleaning up the mess. Thanks for watching, everybody, and of course, until next time, Odin be with you.
So fill in the blanks, paint a picture on the wall. Draw a perfect circle around your soul. Had to shade the color, turn the gray to black and white. From dark to light, it's back to dark we go. From dark to light, it's back to dark we go. From dark to light, it's back to dark we go.